Hi everyone, it's time to do some printing. Today we'll be talking about two particularly difficult letters, B and D. Lowercase b and lowercase d, well, they look really similar. There's a couple of tricks that can help you tell them apart from one another. Here's one trick. Take your thumbs, stick them together like this. Do you notice how they make the shape of the B and the D? And when you put them together, they look a little bit like a bed that you might sleep on. In fact, this is how you spell the word bed. Look, the shape looks just like a real bed, and here's a little person sleeping on top. Make that shape again with your hands. And now, if you say the word bed, you'll remind yourself which letter is B and which letter is D, like this. B. Ed. Do it again. B. Ed. The B in bed is for B, and the shape looks like that. And the D in bed is the D. The shape looks like this. So that's one way you can tell the difference between B and D. Another helpful trick for telling the difference between lowercase b and lowercase d is to make an extra bump on top. So, for example, if you saw this lowercase letter and you weren't sure if it was a lowercase b or a lowercase d, you could add an extra bump or circle on top. Same with this one. Which one do you think is the letter B? Yep, it's this one. So that way you know if you take off the extra bump, it'll still be a B. This one is the imposter. It's a fake. That means it's the D. Those are two tricks for helping you know the difference between lowercase b and lowercase d. When you print these letters, well, you start in different places. Let me show you something. Here's a lowercase b. You see, there's the straight down stick part, and then there's also the circle part. If you're trying to remember which part you're supposed to print first, pretend you're reading a book like this. What is the first part of the letter that you come to? Yep, it's the stick part. In fact, if I held my hand out in the B position like this, and then I pretended I was reading a book, yep, I would hit the stick part first. So that means when I print my lowercase b, I should start at the top so that I'm able to make the straight down line or the stick. The opposite is true for a lowercase d. Take a look. If you make a lowercase d with your hand and then pretend you're reading a book, the first part of the letter you come to is the circle part. That means when you make the d in bed, or the D, you have to make the circle part first and then do the stick. As you can see, knowing the bed trick with your hands is very helpful. Not only does it remind you which letter is which, it also helps you remember what part of the letter you make first. Aha! So with my D, I start with the circle, and with my B, I start with the stick. Now that we have those tricks in mind, let's do some practice with our lowercase b and lowercase d printing. We're going to do the b, letter B first. Show me your bed trick. B, ed. And now pretend you're reading a book. Yep, we're printing lowercase b. That means we'll have to do the straight down line first. So, start on the top line, because rain always starts in the clouds and it never falls up. And go like this, straight down to the ground. And in fact, it's raining so hard, the rain bounces up a little bit. So you say, bounce up, forward rainbow, curve all the way around. When you print a lowercase b, don't ever lift your pen. It stays down the entire time. And you will notice that my forwards rainbow touches the dotted line in the middle of my printing strip. 2 finger spaces, and let's try it again. Start at the top, straight down to the ground, bounce up, forward rainbow, curve all the way around. when I started doing my forwards rainbow, I began the curve or the arch just a little bit before I got to the dotted line. Let's do another one. Start at the top, straight down to the ground, bounce. I'm getting closer to the dotted line, getting closer. Better start my forwards rainbow. Now curve all the way around and close that circle. Notice that my lowercase b does not go under the bottom line. It sits comfortably on top of it. Let's do another one. Start at the top, straight down to the ground, bounce. You're getting closer to the dotted line. Start your forwards rainbow. Curve all the way around. Perfect. Just like that. One more. Start at the top, straight down to the ground, bounce up, forward rainbow, curve all the way around. Try and make your bees have nice round bellies. You don't want them too skinny. See if you can find the mistakes with the following lowercase b's. Watch closely. What's wrong with this one? Uh-oh. Did you notice that I started at the ground and went up? Rain never falls up. When you make the straight down line, well, that part of your B, you always have to start at the top, like this. Fall down to the ground, just like rain falls out of the sky. And then it's okay if you bounce up a little bit. That's better. See if you can find the mistake with this lowercase b. Can you tell this bump or circle is much too small? It's supposed to touch the dotted line when I do the rainbow portion, like this. Start at the top, straight down to the ground, bounce up, forward rainbow, touch the dotted line, then curve all the way around. Do you see the difference? Make sure that when you do your forwards rainbow, it touches the dotted line. Let's try some lowercase d's. Let's see our bed trick again. Ed. Okay, so this is the D in bed for D. And now pretend I'm reading a book, and the first part of the letter I come to is the circle part. So that means I have to do the circle first. Watch this. Say, start below the dotted line. I'll put a little dot so you can see where I'm starting. Backwards rainbow. Curve all the way around. Go way up. And then straight down to the ground. 2 finger spaces. Start below the dotted line. I'll put a little dot so you can see where I'm starting. It's not right on the dotted line, it's a little bit below, so my rainbow will have a nice arch. Backwards rainbow, curve all the way around, go way up, and straight down to the ground. Let's do it again. Start below the dotted line, backwards rainbow, curve all the way around, go way up, and straight down to the ground. Remember, we're printing the circle part of the D first because when we read a book, that's the first part of the letter we come to. Start below the dotted line, backwards rainbow, curve all the way around, go way up, and straight down to the ground. In a lowercase d, you never pick up your pencil or marker. It stays down the entire time. Let's do one more. Start below the dotted line, backwards rainbow, curve all the way around, go way up, and straight down to the ground. See if you can find the mistakes in the following lowercase d's. This is one of the most common mistakes. Watch this. Do you see the giant gap between the circle and the stick part of the D? Right in there? That's not something you want. The way that you avoid that is by making sure when you go way up, you go straight down on the exact same line you came up on. That will keep your gap to a minimum. In this case, I did not go straight down the same line. I did a slide out to the side. See if you can find the mistake with this lowercase d. Well, that looks more like an A than a D. Not only did it go under the ground, but it also didn't go all the way up to the top. This one just really didn't turn out. I'd better try again. I'm going to make sure my backwards rainbow and my curve sit comfortably on the bottom line.